Hi everyone, it's John. Welcome back to my channel. It is February 9th, 2022, and I missed last week, but I have a book review for you this week. I had just not taken the time to get a book review written in time to have one posted last Wednesday. But to make up for it, there is one this week, and it is a book I finished around the beginning of the year, this year. I found this for just a song. Peg told me about this over at the history shelf on Hamilton Books. Something like $4, and I love this sort of cultural history of the book. This is The Social Life of Books. Let me get the subtitle in there for you. Reading Together in the 18th Century Home by Abigail Williams. It's a beautiful little hardcover put out by Yale University Press. And what it essentially is, like the title would suggest, is a social and cultural history of reading. For those of you who may have read one or two of those, you'll probably know what this book is about, especially given the fact that it's about the 18th century. But if you haven't, watch this review and see if I can get you interested in one aspect of reading and books that you may not have read about before. In the 18th century, the rapidly increasing rates of printing and paper production and literacy all come together to create a society, or a set of societies, that was dominated by the presence of the book. The social life of reading serves as kind of an interdisciplinary approach that uses sociology, a history of domesticity, and the social purposes of the book and reading during the 18th century. In a book that is almost wholly driven by vignettes and stories that are taken from diaries and commonplace books and marginalia, Abigail Williams explores how people read, lived with, and curated their reading and their libraries and their books. And in doing so, she overturns the casual assumption that many 21st century readers hold, that reading has always been some sort of solitary activity divorced from a larger social sphere. The word social here in the title may strike the reader as maybe overly academic, but it really is what makes the whole book fascinating. In a time when candles were expensive and daylight was at a premium, reminiscences of gathering around a family hearth to tell each other stories or reenact a play or read poetry was often at the heart of family life. This was a time when young women would go out of their way to display or show off the fact that they were reading a book on good manners or the moral virtues, but would hide her copy of Shakespeare because his body language and occasionally indiscreet themes were thought to make a proper lady blush. Young girls often experienced their first instances of socialization through what they saw and read in books, as did young boys for that matter. Not only were books enjoyed in social settings, but they also served to reinforce the strictly coded behavioral and gender norms of the times, and because of that, the power norms of the times, including showing how young women should act in order to be considered what is ladylike. Two of the things all young middle-class readers had to master during the 18th century were the arts of speech and elocution, and Williams looks at several of the books that are contemporary with the time period she's reading from and draws interesting and distinct lines from the written sermons of churchmen to how respectable people should present themselves in public speaking. This brought not only the morals of the church into the public sphere and the private sphere, but also the refined and confident speech of the person giving the sermon. The 18th century was a time in which books permeated everyday life in ways that they rarely seem to do today. Women would sew utilitarian epigrams into samplers and cushions. Again, sometimes very practical things, sometimes moral quips and axioms and epigrams and things like that. The libraries of servants and young girls instilled, as I've said, moral graces. The atlas in a household, there was almost certainly one if you were approaching middle class. The atlas served as a center for the library, ideal for reference when reading adventure stories in far off places. Family members would keep commonplace books. Um, if you're unfamiliar with what a commonplace book is, it is a book. I guess many of them sort of look like a diary or a notebook with blank pages, and in them you note your favorite lines from poems, uh, parts of your favorite novels, sayings. Uh, it's sort of like your own personal Bartlett's quotations that you curate yourself and that you keep. And you would always have it handy while you were reading poetry or reading from a play or a novel or having a story told to you. People of all classes and all backgrounds used almanacs, for example, to consult information about weather or astrology or whatever else. In just about 270 pages, the book's length, Abigail Williams manages to say something interesting about nearly every social and cultural aspect of reading in the 18th century that most people could think to ask. It's admittedly a little bit dry in places. It is from a university press, from Yale, as I mentioned, and can sometimes feel a bit repetitive in places too. But for someone who might be interested, and hopefully maybe you are a little bit interested now that I've talked about it for a few minutes, um, in a well-researched book about the intersections between the world of books and family, and like I said, sort of this cult of domesticity and what it means to raise a proper, especially a proper daughter, but also sons as well. This is a book that really would reward close and careful reading. And if you can still find it on Hamilton Books, it can be had for, like I said, a song. Uh, Quite inexpensive. A lovely little piece of cultural history. The social life of books. Reading together in the 18th century home by Abigail Williams. Excuse my horrible, horrible vision. I will see you next week. Bye.